Hello everybody, this is Brenton from Huge Miniatures. I've had a lot of requests to demonstrate sort of how our texture paste works. So I figured I'd put together a short little demo and show you how to make a super quick base and how easy the stuff is to use. So first I'm going to lay down a little foundation of rubble just to use as a building block. So then we put the texture paste on top. It's not just all basic flat ground. So I'm just going to squeeze some glue down. You can be pretty sporadic about it because it's natural and things are not orderly. Then this is the rubble basing material. Just sprinkle it on. It really does not have to be precise in any way. And then coarse basing material. Sprinkle that in on top of the rubble and just kind of fills in some of those crevices. It just makes foundation. You're not going to see this after all the glue dries and you put the texture paste on top of it anyways. So let's put this away. And that is a base with a little bit of variance on it. So I've got one that I did a little earlier and let it dry so that I could just go ahead and do the next step. So this is this texture paste here. I'm just using stuff from my personal stash. So it's got janky labels on it and whatnot, but you know, obviously the stuff you buy is all up here from the store. So I really like to apply this stuff using a coffee stir. You can use a popsicle stick. Any little small tool like this should get the job done perfectly fine. And then I'm just going to layer it right over top the stone that we put down. Just kind of work it around. You can lay it on in large globs and then you'll end up scraping a bunch off it and you just put it back into the jar. So just layer it on. Actually, if you do apply it in thicker layers like this, it goes on pretty easy. Just sort of smush it around, cover up all that rubble ground layer. And again, if you want a perfectly flat base, you can just skip that step as well. So work it around, and then you can kind of level it out and get sort of whatever type of effect you're after. You can use even something like a piece of a wet sponge. You get a little bit of texture in there too. But after I've got it laid out like this, in a way that I'm happy with, I'll just run my finger along the edge and clean it up. Looks so much better if you do that. And so that's the base with the texture paste applied. And the best stuff about this is I just stick grass tufts and flowers and whatnot directly into it. So just grab some, whatever you like. I'm using muddy grass tufts here. Use my tweezers and just stick them right in. And this stuff will dry and those tufts will, you won't ever get them out again. So just apply them however you like. If you want a whole bunch, you don't have to actually stick it all the way down into the bottom either. You can kind of just leave it sort of floating in the texture paste a bit so it doesn't get completely buried. And it'll dry and work just fine. Put a little frosty debris tuft in there. And you might be thinking, well, why would you be putting grass tufts on stone? Well, I mostly play fantasy, and it doesn't really matter. If it looks cool and you're happy with it, then it's really all that matters. You can use the stone texture paste just as sort of like a gray neutral backdrop. And for me personally, that totally works. So just mush a couple of whatever you want in there, and there you go. So There is sort of what you could call the finish base. You let this dry, texture paste, depending on how thick you apply it. It only takes 30 minutes to an hour. This will probably take about an hour to dry, at least to a point where you could dry brush it if you wanted to. So I do have a fully dried version here. You can see the color changes just slightly for this one. For colors like the mud and the dirt, it changes a little bit more dramatically, but you can see the pictures on our website for that. And then lastly, what I'm going to do, you could stop here. You could dry brush it if you want. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue down and stick a little bit of loose foliage, just for like little shrubs. You could also use like 4-in-1 scatter product. That would work really good in this circumstance if you don't want to buy a whole container of loose foliage. That scatter has this stuff throughout it. So this is a little bit of olive and dark green. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it about, press it into the areas that have a little bit of glue on it. Just like that, and tap it off. There you go. Not too bad. Pretty instant base. You can use any combination of the products you want. You can use just the texture paste and grass tufts if you really want to, but super fast and easy way to get a unique looking base. And of course, if you're doing this for like an army or a warband or something, do all the stones, let that dry. Then by the time you come back around, there's a chance you could be safe to apply texture paste. So I hope that this was helpful and that it provides a little bit of insight as to how to use the product. And if you got any questions, please feel free to reach out. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody.